What is going on, everybody? My name is Briley Taylor. I am the owner and operator of 6 Feet Under Fab, and today we are going to finish working on the clean slate Cherokee right here. This is a later model Cherokee XJ that we are putting a 8-inch suspension system on with a 3-link in the front, and we're doing a coil spring conversion in the rear, and this is all from Iron Rock Off-Road. In the last video I put the 3-link on in the front, and let me show you what I've done since the last video. Sorry for my AC noise right there, it was really hot in the shop. So in the last video I put the 3-link on and got it all set up and got the caster and all the angles correct. But since then I have put the Cav Fab steering on. I've put the Trail Tamer steering stabilizer on. I'm still trying to fine tune exactly where I want that stabilizer to go, but right there it seems it doesn't want to bind. And I did have to come in here and make a double sheared mount. I couldn't use the factory stabilizer mount because of the Cav Fab over the axle track bar mount. So I came in here and fabricated a mount right there with some, looks like it's a little bit thicker than 3/16, but I got it on, and then I had to put it on the bottom because I still needed to be able to get the sway bar disconnect off. So I had to give myself enough room to get that off, and that was pretty successful. And then I put the extended brake lines on. So I've definitely been super busy with this Jeep, but today I want to start focusing on the rear. The rear is probably going to be a whole new beast in itself because I have to pretty much delete the leaf springs. If you're not familiar, these Jeeps in the rear come with leaf springs. They don't come with these coils, and the coils do better off-road. They handle better driving down the road. So it's going to be pretty awesome whenever it's all said and done. It's basically getting a long arm Wrangler suspension put on it. So this is pretty much everything that comes in the kit. The customer did upgrade a few things. Like he got the Iron Rock Off-Road belly skid, that was an addition. We got to put the Barnes stiffeners on in the rear. That's probably what we're going to do first, but let me show you a little bit about this kit here. So I know this may look very complicated and like a lot of parts, but if you break it down, it's really not that bad. So obviously, you know, we got the brake lines. We're gonna have to cut off all of the brackets on that rear axle, basically make it a clean slate. See what I did there? And so we're gonna have to bend these hard lines to go around this truss right there. This is the truss that the mounts will be welding to right there for the upper control arms for the 4-link. And then we also have to weld on the lower control arm mounts to the axle also. So we're gonna have to get that all set up. We're gonna have to get the coil spring pads, the shocks. These are the coil spring retainers. And this is just all the hardware that comes with the kit. These are the flex joint these are the flex joints right there. We have to put those in the control arms. These are also some flex joints that we have to put together to go in these control arms here. Obviously we have the coil springs there, we have the bump stops here, and this also gets welded to the truss. This is just all the hardware. This is the meat and potatoes right here. This is the 4-link bracket that'll actually bolt underneath the Cherokee. This bolts directly to the unibody. You got to drill it out, and then you got to fish some plates in there into the unibody to bolt everything up. And this is the upper coil spring mounts that also bolts to the unibody. The suspension is a bolt-on kit. The only really welding that I think I'm going to have to do is on this truss and on the axle and stuff like that, which is no big deal. Also got to be welding those on too. So there is a ton of parts here, but man, is it going to be worth it whenever it's on. So you can see right there, the front is actually on its own weight. And so that's going to be my ride height. I wanted to figure out exactly where the front was going to live before I started anything in the rear, because whenever I am setting up the 4-link suspension. So whenever I set up 4-link suspensions, I like the front to be where it's going to be. And then in the rear, what I can do is I can tack things up with the welder and test everything, test my pinion angle. I can test everything front to rear, make sure there's no binding. And then what I'll do is I'll take the whole axle back out, fully weld it, and then put it back in. For YouTube purposes, I wanted to dedicate one video to the front and one video to the rear. And you may be asking, well, if it's on its own weight, then what's holding it? These jack stands back here are holding it. They're on the reese hitch, and it's definitely super solid. But man, look how awesome that is. So if you live in like Myrtle Beach or something, you'd probably want to leave it just like this, Carolina squat. The first thing that I need to do is I need to get this axle and the leaf springs out of the way. That way I can clean the unibody and start getting these unibody stiffeners on. If you're not familiar with unibody stiffeners, just like the name of them, they stiffen up the unibody. So these unibodies, they have Pepsi can thick metal in some parts. Whenever you take this thing rock crawling or put any crazy suspension on, that unibody can flex, and what the unibody stiffeners will do will make it so that the unibody won't flex, crack, or anything like that. It'll also make the Jeep feel a lot more stable because the unibody isn't flexing. I can't tell you how many Cherokees that I've seen that whenever you go off-road, they want to get something out of the back and they can't even open this because the unibody is just such in a bind they won't allow any of the doors to open or the hatch to open. But the unibody stiffeners will eliminate all of that, and it'll make this Jeep last a lifetime. So up underneath the Jeep here, the first thing I'm gonna do is get this sway bar off. One of the shocks was actually broken, so the next thing I would do is probably take the shocks out. And also I disconnected the emergency brake lines too. So I have everything disconnected except for the leaf springs. And what I'm gonna do is I've got my little table, my little axle cart is what I call it. But I'm gonna lower the Jeep down and then remove the leaf springs. That way the weight of the axle is on the cart. But before I do that, so I've got to lower it down, but before I take that axle out, I need to support the front of the vehicle. So anytime you take an axle out, especially when it's on a lift, you need to support the opposite side of the vehicle. Me taking that heavy axle out and leaving the motor and the front axle, everything on the front could fall forward. So you just need to be cautious whenever you take axles out when the Jeep is up in the air. I like to have multiple points of support whenever I am working on a vehicle on a lift. I know you're not watching this video to learn safety tips, but I feel like that one is pretty important. I really think this is the first time I've ever actually been able to get these bolts out of a XJ. Most of the time they either break or they're seized up inside the bushing or inside of the unibody. It's kind of nice working on nice stuff. That's awesome. That is so rare. I might make this bolt like a necklace or something. So I'm gonna do the same thing in the rear. Ha! This is nuts. I hope the other side comes out this easy. All right, so this will be the last time leaf springs are ever up underneath this XJ. That's awesome. This is so cool. All right, so now I'm gonna do the same thing to the driver's side. So I believe on the later year models of these XJs, they put the evap canister right here, and I've got to relocate it. If you completely take this out, then you're gonna be getting all kinds of crazy check engine lights, and I can't stand check engine lights. So I'm going to be relocating this somewhere. I'll figure it out once I get the 4-link in here and the exhaust and everything like that. But for now, I'm just going to take a 13 millimeter and go ahead and remove this. So since I'm going to be doing a lot of welding right here, I'm going to go ahead and get this gas tank out because I don't want to burn myself up or burn the customer's Jeep. And I think this thing is like 3/4 of a tank of gas in it or something crazy. So, oh my gosh, look, they sprayed the connections with that undercoating. So I'm going to have to pick at this a little while, and you can see right there they sprayed all in the connector. So it might take me a minute to clean all this up because I don't want to break the connector. So now I'm going to be removing the gas line. It looks like that coating is all over the gas line. I tried to come in and clean it up the best that I could, but holy crap. I mean, this stuff is everywhere. I mean, it is, I guarantee you there's 100 pounds of this rubberized coating. It is just everywhere. But I did get this out, and it was a lot. But I'm going to be using one of these gas tools right here, and make sure that you relieve the pressure on the line before you do this. It is just gunked inside. Oh my gosh. All right. And just so you know, gas is going to come out. So make sure you wear safety glasses. Man, that gas stinks. So, got the gas line undone. Now I've just got to get this vent hose undone. It's sprayed with that stuff too. There we go. There we go, there we go, there we go. So now I can go ahead and take the gas tank fasteners off. So I had to spray these with WD-40. They are really hard. I think that coating is on these threads. Alright, so I got it loosened up just enough where I can get that collar out right there. So now I've got to get this heat shield off, and so now I got to get the heat shield off, and I also have to get this reese hitch off. So back underneath the Jeep here, I've got this loosened up to where I can get this out. And now all of the hangers and everything are free. So now I can drop the gas tank down and disconnect the filler hoses. So I have the gas tank out, got the leaf springs, the axle, basically everything in the rear is ready to be cleaned up and the stiffeners welding on. So I'm probably about to go get some lunch and clean up all the bloody knuckles, and then I'll come back out here and I'll start cleaning up this unibody. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and get some of this rubberized undercoating off, just like I did on the front stiffeners. And what I found the best is to hit it with a torch and then use a scraper, and this stuff will come right off. But I've got it on the sides right here, I've got it on the bottom, and I want to get all that off and just have a bare metal unibody. That way I can weld to it. But so what I plan on doing is I'm going to scrape all this off, clean it down to bare metal, and then hit it with some weldable paint. I've already got the back sides of the unibody stiffeners painted. with that weldable paint. And then once I do all that, then we'll be out ready to tack weld the unibody stiffeners on. So I'm gonna start scraping. So kind of give you a closer look of everything. So I've got it obviously cleaned all the way down and then painted with some Steelit, and I also did it on this side as well because I'm going to be welding right along this seam right here. And something else that I should mention is I wrapped up this with several little bags and duct tape. That way a spark wouldn't, come over here and ignite. If you just put a rag over it, it could leak and then you could ignite the rag and then you got a mess on your hands. So I just kind of double bagged that because I didn't want to throw any sparks to it. And now I've got to get all of this mess off. This undercoating is insane. Like, look at all of it right here. So luckily it's not this bad on the unibody. This side really isn't that bad. But holy crap. This is nuts. I mean, that's like 50 pounds worth of that stuff just in this area alone. I don't know if you can see how thick that is. It's like it kind of looks like caves or something in a mountain. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and get this side the same as I did the other side. So if you've never really done unibody stiffeners before, what you really want to do is to get this down to bare metal and then paint it with a weldable paint. And then on the back side of your unibody stiffener, you also want to paint it with a weldable paint. And the reason I use a weldable paint on this is because it takes a lot more to ignite than it does regular spray paint. So if I just hit this with a regular Rust-Oleum, as soon as I started welding, it would actually flame up and burn off, whereas the weldable paint won't. It doesn't mind the heat. So I've got this unibody stiffener. I've got it wiped down with some acetone right there, and this one is going to go right about here. And so you do have your sway bar bolt holes that you have to keep in mind, and that's it right here. So you want to make sure you keep these bolt holes available, and you just want everything flush. You don't want any gaps anywhere. So now I'm going to take some clamps, just clamp it down. Of course it dropped. Get some good clamps on it just like that. So now that I've got it clamped, I'm just verifying that there's no gaps anywhere. So I'm good with this being right here. Everything is where it's supposed to be, and I know that I have it correct because of these two bolt holes. So now I'm going to go ahead and tack this in. I went ahead and just threw some good tacks all the way around, and then I tested a bead right here. I like to do like a little test run just to make sure that it's welding like I want it to and the welder's at the right setting. So now what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and tack on this back piece just to make sure that it's going to play nice with where I set this one at. This one is really important because it has several holes that you would need for like a rear bumper or something like that. So you want to make sure that this lines up in the rear. And all right, so this is where this one goes, just like that. Awesome. Since I do have these holes right here and I have the bolts, I can go ahead and just tighten this up. And this, instead of using a clamp right here, I'll just keep the bolts tightened down in it, and then I know whenever I'm welding it, it's not gonna go anywhere. So I've got all these tightened up, and now I know that everything is lined up for sure. Alright, so after a crap ton of welding, I have the rear stiffeners on. Holy crap, that was a lot of work. It was a lot of nasty welding, a lot of slag getting blown back. Welding on unibody stiffeners is a messy and dirty job, but it's just one of those things you really got to do it. Let's see, right now it is 4:22 in the morning, 4:22. I did go inside for a little while and get a shower and everything, but there's like a tropical storm or something coming, and I can't sleep during storms, so we're right back out here to work. But it was a lot of welding and it was a lot of work, but it'll definitely be a lot stronger than what it was. And what I like to do in some areas is I like to pretty much stack tack welds. And basically what I'm doing is I'm not heating up the area but so much, and I'm just doing a tack weld, and then coming back and doing some more just so I won't heat it up. So the next thing that I'm gonna do is, after I do unibody stiffeners, I like to put a seam sealer on just in case. I like to put it at the top and along all my welds just in case there is a tiny spore that I can't see, and I don't want any moisture or anything getting behind the unibody stiffener. So I'm gonna go around and hit everything with that seam sealer, and then we'll hit it with another coat of paint, and then we'll be ready to start tearing down this rear axle. So I've got the seam sealer all on and I can paint it. I think it's 60 minutes, but I'll probably paint it, later on this afternoon. But now I'm going to turn my attention to this rear axle. This is a Chrysler 8 1/4 rear axle. It is the factory axle that came in a lot of these Cherokees, but I have to pretty much get this a bare axle because I'm going to be welding the truss, the shock tabs, these coil spring tabs, and the lower control arm mounts. I'm going to be welding all that to here, and so I have to have the brake line off, the leaf spring perch off, these shock tabs off, the brake line off, the e-brake holder thingy, and yeah, and all this stuff too. So basically I'm going to make this just a clean axle. the axle all cleaned down to bare metal. Like right there, you can see I nicked it with the plasma cutter, but it didn't go inside the tube. So, and if it did, it'd be fine. I'm just gonna put a little tack weld over it and then grind it down and smooth it all out. And then I came back with the sander and just kind of roughed it up. That way it will, the paint will stick better to it, because I'm gonna be spraying all this with the weldable spray paint also. And then I also painted the seam sealer. I know somebody in the comments may say, oh, it looks terrible with that seam sealer on there, but honestly, I would rather it look a little messy than ever rust behind it, because now I know no rust will ever be behind there. You can see there, I just kind of went inside there where it was kind of hard getting the welder, and just made sure that there was no pinholes. I got all up in there. And then same thing on the inside here. It finally just stopped raining for a couple of minutes where I could actually talk to the camera. All right, well, so I think I'm gonna hit that with some weldable spray paint, and then I'm gonna get inside and make the kids some breakfast.